My name is Haley Mitchell, and at 18, I watched my future crumble when my stepfather Kevin announced he had invested my college fund, money my real dad left me when he died. The silence that followed his smug declaration still haunts me. 10 years of straight A's, summers working extra shifts at the diner, all while dreaming of engineering school, gone in an instant. I always sensed Kevin resented my academic success, but nothing prepared me for what he said next. Girls don't need degrees anyway. What he didn't know. My favorite teacher was about to change everything. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had someone try to steal your dreams. Growing up, I had a pretty normal childhood until my dad died of a heart attack when I was 5. Those early years with just mom and me were tough, but filled with love. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and I still remember how exhausted she looked coming home from her night shifts. But she always made time to read to me before bed, no matter how tired she was. Everything changed when I was 8 and Mom met Kevin Wallace at her workplace. He was charming, financially stable, and seemed genuinely interested in being a father figure to me. Within a year, they were married, and we moved into his larger house in a better school district. On the surface, it seemed like our luck had finally turned around. Kevin had a son from his previous marriage named Jason, who was 2 years older than me. From the beginning, there was an obvious difference in how Kevin treated us. While he wasn't openly hostile toward me, there was always a subtle distance, a coldness that wasn't there when he interacted with Jason. "Haley, your report card looks great," he would say when I brought home straight A's, before quickly turning to Jason. "Son, that C in math improved to a C+. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go get ice cream to celebrate." My mother, Diane, seemed to notice these discrepancies, but always made excuses. "Kevin just connects differently with Jason because he's a boy," she would tell me. "And they've been together longer. Give it time." But time only seemed to widen the gap. By middle school, the pattern was unmistakable. When I won the science fair in 7th grade, Kevin merely nodded and said, "That's nice," before returning to his newspaper. When Jason made the junior varsity football team, despite barely meeting the GPA requirements to play, Kevin threw a backyard barbecue and invited the entire neighborhood. The inequality extended to financial matters too. My biological father had left behind a modest insurance policy worth about $45,000 that my mother had designated as my college fund. Kevin would occasionally mention it, always with a strange tone in his voice. "That money your dad left, it's just sitting there in the bank," he'd say. Not very smart financially. My mother would quickly change the subject, seemingly uncomfortable. I later learned she had made Kevin the custodian of the account when they married, a decision that would come back to haunt us all. Despite the underlying tension at home, I threw myself into my studies. Math and science became my refuge. While other kids complained about algebra, I found peace in its logical patterns. Physics and chemistry weren't just subjects, they were doorways to understanding the world in ways that made sense when my home life often didn't. By high school, my passion for engineering had fully bloomed. I joined the robotics club and spent countless hours designing and building competitive robots. Our team made it to the state championships 2 years running, achievements that barely registered on Kevin's radar. "Engineering seems like such a masculine field," he commented once when I was discussing college programs at dinner. "Wouldn't you prefer something more suitable for a young lady? Like teaching or nursing?" My mother jumped in, "Kevin, it's the 21st century. Women can be engineers." "Sure, they can," he replied with a dismissive wave. "I'm just thinking about Haley's future happiness. Those technical fields are so competitive and stressful." Meanwhile, Jason struggled through high school with mediocre grades and no clear direction. Yet Kevin spoke endlessly about Jason's potential and how he was finding himself. When Jason decided to take a gap year after graduation, which turned into 2 years of playing video games in the basement, Kevin defended it as a young man figuring out his path. The summer before my senior year, I landed an internship at a local engineering firm. The experience confirmed everything: This was what I wanted to do with my life. The female engineer who supervised me, Teresa Johnson, became another role model alongside my English teacher, Mrs. Samantha Carter. Mrs. Carter was different from my other teachers. She saw beyond my good grades to the person underneath. She noticed when I was quiet or seemed troubled, often asking me to stay after class for a chat. "You have a remarkable mind, Haley," she told me once. "But I sense there's something holding you back from fully believing in yourself." I never told her about the dynamics at home. I was too embarrassed, too afraid of seeming ungrateful. After all, Kevin provided a nice house, food on the table, and never yelled or hit anyone. My problems seemed trivial compared to what some kids faced. But Mrs. Carter seemed to intuit that something wasn't right. She gave me books about remarkable women in history who overcame obstacles, particularly in STEM fields. She wrote college recommendation letters that made me cry when I read them, so accurately did they capture who I was and who I hoped to become. As senior year progressed, I applied to 7 engineering programs, including my dream school, Georgia Tech. When my first acceptance letter arrived from the University of Illinois, I was ecstatic. Mom hugged me tight, tears in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. Kevin's response? "Those application fees sure add up, don't they?" By March, I had been accepted to 5 schools, including Georgia Tech. The financial aid packages were decent, but would still leave significant gaps that my father's insurance money was meant to fill. I started making plans, calculating costs, dreaming of dorm life and engineering classes. Little did I know that in a single evening, all those carefully constructed dreams would come crashing down around me. It was a Tuesday evening in March, just 3 months before graduation. Mom had made Kevin's favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes, and the 4 of us sat around the dining table as we did most nights. Jason was texting under the table, barely participating in the conversation. Mom was asking about everyone's day, her usual attempt to create family harmony. I was excited because I'd just received my financial aid package from Georgia Tech, and while it wasn't a full ride, combined with my college fund, it would make attending possible. "I need to start looking for a summer job near campus," I said, spreading some calculations I'd done on notebook paper. "If I can work part-time during the school year too, I should be able to cover books and extra expenses without taking out too many loans." Kevin cleared his throat and set down his fork with deliberate slowness. Something about his expression made my stomach tighten. "About that," he said, reaching for his wine glass. "We need to discuss your college situation." Mom looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "Kevin? Haley's been accepted to her top schools. We're so proud of her." Kevin took a long sip of wine before continuing. "The financial landscape has changed. I've had to make some executive decisions for the family's benefit." My hand froze halfway to my water glass. "What are you talking about?" "Your college fund," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I've had to reallocate those resources." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Reallocate? What does that mean?" "I've invested it in expanding my business. The construction company is growing. And when the opportunity came to buy out my partner, I had to move quickly." I couldn't process what I was hearing. "You invested my college fund? The money my dad left me?" "It's not like that," he said, his voice hardening. "That money was just sitting there, losing value to inflation. I'm turning it into something bigger. But I need it for college. This fall, I've been accepted." "The financial aid paperwork." "Plans change," he interrupted, finally looking at me directly. His expression wasn't apologetic, it was challenging. "The business expansion will benefit this entire family in the long run." My throat constricted as the reality dawned on me. "You spent it. You spent all of it." "I invested it," he corrected sharply. "And honestly, Haley, it's probably for the best. Girls don't need degrees anyway. You'll just get married and have kids." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked to my mother, waiting for her to defend me, to express outrage. Instead, she stared at her plate, her face pale. "Mom?" My voice cracked. "Kevin says the business expansion is a sure thing," she murmured. "The return on investment will be substantial." "Return? When?" I demanded, turning back to Kevin. I'm supposed to start college in 5 months. He waved dismissively. You can go to community college for a couple of years. Or take a gap year like Jason. There's no rush. Jason smirked from across the table, no longer pretending to be absorbed in his phone. Yeah, sis. Finding yourself is important. The mockery in his tone made something snap inside me. This isn't about finding myself. This is about my future. That money was from my dad. It wasn't yours to invest. Kevin's face hardened. I'm the head of this household, and I make the financial decisions. That's the end of it. I pushed back from the table so violently my chair toppled over behind me. Tears blurred my vision as I ran upstairs to my room, slamming the door behind me. I collapsed onto my bed, my body shaking with sobs. All those years of hard work, of dreaming, planning, pushing myself, all for nothing. The future I'd mapped out, that I'd earned, had been stolen from me with casual cruelty. Through my tears, I looked at the Georgia Tech acceptance letter I'd pinned to my bulletin board. The bright gold and white colors now seemed to mock me. How could he do this? How could my mother let him? The betrayal cut deep, not just the loss of the money, but the dismissal of my ambitions, my worth, my entire future, all reduced to girls don't need degrees anyway. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and texted my best friend Rachel. He spent my college fund. All of it. Said girls don't need degrees. I don't know what to do. Her response came quickly. What? Are you serious? Can he even do that legally? I hadn't even considered the legality. In my mind, Kevin was the all-powerful stepfather whose word was law in our house. But Rachel's question planted a seed. Could what he did be illegal? The money was specifically left to me by my biological father. Sleep eluded me that night as I cycled through shock, grief, and rage. By morning, the grief had hardened into determination. I didn't know if there was anything I could do to recover the money, but I knew one thing for certain. I would not let Kevin Wallace determine my future. I went through the motions the next morning, avoiding eye contact with both Mom and Kevin at breakfast. Mom tried to approach me as I grabbed my backpack. Haley, honey, I know you're upset. But Kevin really does have our best interests at heart. I cut her off. Don't. Just don't. I couldn't bear to hear her defend him again. School was a blur. I took notes mechanically, answered when called on, but felt disconnected from everything around me. Friends noticed something was wrong, but I brushed off their concerns. How could I explain what had happened without breaking down completely? During lunch, I hid in the library, researching college costs and loan options on a computer. The numbers were devastating. Even with financial aid, without my college fund, the gap was too wide to bridge with part-time jobs and standard student loans. My last period of the day was AP English with Mrs. Carter. Usually my favorite class, today I could barely focus on the discussion of The Great Gatsby. The irony wasn't lost on me, a novel about the corruption of the American dream. When the final bell rang, I gathered my books slowly, not eager to return home to the suffocating atmosphere there. Haley, could you stay a moment? Mrs. Carter's voice broke through my fog. I approached her desk as the other students filed out. You were very quiet today, she said, studying my face. That's not like you, especially during a Gatsby discussion. Sorry, I mumbled. Just tired. Mrs. Carter closed her classroom door for privacy. I've taught you for 2 years now. I know tired and I know distressed. This is distressed. Something about her genuine concern cracked my carefully constructed composure. To my horror, tears welled up in my eyes. Oh, Haley, she said softly, guiding me to a chair. What's happened? The whole story poured out of me. The college fund, Kevin's announcement, his dismissive words about girls not needing degrees, my mother's failure to stand up for me. The death of my college dreams. Mrs. Carter listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. When I finished, she handed me a box of tissues. Haley, what your stepfather did isn't just wrong morally, it may be illegal. I looked up surprised. Rachel said the same thing, but I don't understand how. He's my parent. Doesn't he have control over the money? Mrs. Carter shook her head. Not necessarily. If your biological father left that money specifically for you in a custodial account or trust, your stepfather might have committed fraud by using it for his business. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Really? I'm not a lawyer, she cautioned, but I do know something about this. My sister went through a similar situation with her ex-husband and their children's accounts. She paused, thinking. Do you know exactly how the money was set up? Was there a will or trust document? I shook my head. I was only 5 when my dad died. Mom never really explained the details. Would your mother have those documents? Probably. But she won't go against Kevin. She never does. Mrs. Carter's expression hardened slightly. This isn't about going against your stepfather. This is about protecting what's legally yours. She glanced at her watch. The school library is still open. Let's go there and do some research together. For the next hour, Mrs. Carter and I huddled over a computer, researching custodial accounts, UGMA/UTMA laws, and inheritance rights for minors. The more we read, the clearer it became. If my father had set up the account specifically for my education, Kevin likely had no legal right to use the money for his business. The key will be finding the original documentation, Mrs. Carter explained. Without seeing how the account was established, we can't know for sure what the legal restrictions were. As we were packing up to leave, Mrs. Carter made a decision. Haley, I have a friend who might be able to help. Beth Walker is an attorney who specializes in family law. Would you be comfortable speaking with her? The thought of talking to a lawyer was intimidating, but what choice did I have? Yes, if you think she could help. Let me call her right now, Mrs. Carter said, pulling out her phone. After a brief conversation explaining my situation, she looked at me with a smile. Beth can see us tomorrow after school. She's willing to give some preliminary advice pro bono, that means free of charge. For the first time since Kevin's announcement, I felt a glimmer of hope. Why are you helping me like this? I asked Mrs. Carter as we walked to the parking lot. She stopped and turned to face me. Because what's happening to you is wrong, Haley. And because I believe in you. You have extraordinary potential as an engineer, and I'm not going to stand by while someone tries to steal your future because of outdated, sexist beliefs. Her words gave me strength I didn't know I needed. As I drove home, I felt something new alongside the hurt and betrayal, determination. With Mrs. Carter's help, maybe I could fight back. Maybe my dreams weren't dead after all. The meeting with Beth Walker the next afternoon was eye-opening. Mrs. Carter had arranged for us to meet at a small coffee shop off campus, away from curious eyes and ears. Beth was younger than I expected, maybe in her mid-30s, with a direct gaze and no-nonsense demeanor. After introducing herself and ordering coffees for all of us, Beth got straight to business. Samantha has told me the basics of your situation, Haley, but I'd like to hear it from you. With as many details as you can remember. I recounted everything again, my father's death, the insurance policy, the college fund, and Kevin's announcement that he had invested it all. Beth took notes as I spoke, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Do you know if your mother was the original custodian of the account before she married Kevin? I think so. She mentioned once that she had to sign papers to add Kevin to the account after they got married. Beth's eyebrows rose. That's significant. And you said the money came from your biological father's life insurance policy, specifically designated for your education. I nodded. And you're how old now? 18. My birthday was in January. Beth set down her pen and looked at me directly. Based on what you've told me, Haley, I believe your stepfather has likely committed financial fraud. If the account was a UTMA or custodial account designated for your education, that money should have become fully yours when you turned 18, and even before that. It could only legally be used for your benefit, not for his business. The confirmation that Kevin had done something potentially illegal sent a mixture of vindication and anxiety through me. So, what can I do? First, we need documentation, the original insurance policy, the account setup documents, and statements showing when and how the money was withdrawn. Without those, it's just your word against his. Those would all be at my house, I said, my stomach nodding at the thought of searching for them. Is there any way you could look for them without alerting your stepfather? Beth asked. I thought about it. Maybe. My mom keeps important papers in a file cabinet in their bedroom. I might be able to check when they're not home. That would be ideal, Beth said. Once we have documentation, we can determine our next steps. It might be as simple as a formal demand letter. Or it might require court intervention. The thought of taking Kevin to court made me feel physically ill, but the alternative, letting him steal my future, was worse. That evening, I waited until Kevin went to his weekly poker game and Mom was in the basement doing laundry. With shaking hands, I searched through the file cabinet in their bedroom, finally locating a folder labeled Haley, Trust/College. Inside were exactly the documents we needed: my father's life insurance policy showing the payout, the establishment of a custodial account explicitly for educational expenses, and bank statements showing steady growth over the years until 3 months ago, when the entire balance of $63.247, the original amount plus accumulated interest, was withdrawn. Most damning of all was a transfer form showing the money had been moved directly into Wallace Construction LLC, with Kevin's signature as the authorizing party. The form clearly stated that the funds were being used for business capital investment. I took photos of all the documents with my phone, then carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. The next day, I showed the photos to Beth and Mrs. Carter. Beth's expression grew increasingly confident as she examined each one. "This is exactly what we needed," she said. "The account terms explicitly state the money was for your education. Kevin had no legal right to use it for his business, regardless of his status as custodian." "So, what do we do now?" I asked. "I recommend a two-step approach," Beth replied. "First, you confront Kevin with what you know and demand he return the money. His reaction will tell us a lot about how to proceed. If he refuses or becomes hostile, we move to legal action." The thought of confronting Kevin terrified me, but I knew it was necessary. "I'll do it tonight," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. That evening, I waited until dinner was almost finished. Jason was out with friends, so it was just the three of us. I took a deep breath and placed the printed photos of the documents on the table. "I need to talk to you both about my college fund," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Kevin's expression immediately darkened. "I thought we settled this." "We didn't settle anything. You told me you took my money. You didn't ask or discuss it with me." "Watch your tone, young lady," he warned. "I've been doing some research," I continued, pushing the documents toward him. "This money was legally mine. It was set up as a custodial account specifically for my education. What you did wasn't just wrong, it was illegal." Kevin's face flushed red. "How dare you accuse me of doing something illegal in my own house? I'm your father." "You're my stepfather," I corrected quietly. "And according to the law, you had no right to use that money for your business." Mom looked back and forth between us, clearly distressed. "Haley, where is this coming from? Did someone put these ideas in your head?" "I consulted with an attorney," I said, not mentioning Mrs. Carter's involvement. The attorney confirmed that what Kevin did constitutes financial fraud. Kevin slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. "An attorney? You went behind our backs to a lawyer? Who do you think you are?" "I'm someone who had her future stolen," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I want my college fund back. All of it. If I don't get it, I'll take legal action." Kevin's laugh was ugly. "With what money? You think lawyers work for free?" "Some do. When the case involves clear fraud against a student. And I have one willing to help me." Kevin stood up, looming over the table. "You ungrateful little, after everything I've done for you." "Kevin." Mom gasped. "What have you done for me?" I asked, standing up too, refusing to be intimidated. "You've belittled my achievements, favored Jason at every turn. And now you've stolen money my real dad left to make sure I could go to college." "Get out," Kevin said, his voice dangerously quiet. "If you're going to threaten legal action against me, you can get out of my house." Mom jumped up. "Kevin, no. She's just upset. She's made her choice," he said, cutting her off. "Either she drops this nonsense or she leaves." I looked at my mother, silently pleading with her to stand up for me, just this once. For a moment, I thought she might. Her eyes filled with tears, and she opened her mouth as if to speak. Then Kevin put his hand on her shoulder, and I watched her resolve crumble. "Haley, please," she whispered. "Family is everything. We can work this out." In that moment, I realized I couldn't stay. Not just tonight, but at all. Not in a house where my dreams and rights meant so little. "I'll pack a bag," I said quietly. I called Rachel from my room, and she immediately offered to let me stay with her family. Her parents had always liked me, and when Rachel explained the situation, they were outraged on my behalf. As I threw clothes and essentials into a duffel bag, my mother appeared in the doorway. "Please don't do this," she begged. "Kevin will calm down. We'll find another way to pay for college." "This isn't just about the money anymore, Mom," I said, zipping up the bag. "It's about respect. It's about valuing me and my future. Kevin has never done either. He loves you in his own way." She insisted weakly. "That's not good enough." I shouldered my bag and looked at her sadly. "And you deserved better too." Rachel's dad picked me up 20 minutes later. As we drove away, I saw my mother watching from the window, Kevin nowhere in sight. I wondered if she was remembering how she'd once worked 2 jobs to give me a better life, before she'd surrendered her strength to a man who didn't deserve it. The next day, Mrs. Carter, Beth, and I met again to discuss next steps. Given Kevin's reaction, Beth recommended proceeding with legal action immediately. "We'll file a civil complaint for conversion of funds and breach of fiduciary duty," she explained. "The documentation is strong enough that we might be able to get an emergency injunction preventing him from spending any more of the business funds until this is resolved." As we were finalizing our plan, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Kevin says if you drop this, you can come home, and he'll help with community college costs." I showed it to Beth, who shook her head. "That's not remotely adequate. The money was yours, designated for your education at whatever institution you chose. Don't respond yet." That evening, something unexpected happened. My advanced calculus teacher, Mr. Patel, called Rachel's house asking to speak with me. "Haley, I heard from Mrs. Carter about your situation," he said. "I want you to know that several faculty members are organizing a small scholarship fund for you. It won't cover everything, but it's a start." I was speechless. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you're exactly the kind of student who should be pursuing engineering," he replied simply. "And because we're not going to let one man's outdated views determine your future." By the end of the week, word had spread throughout the school about what had happened. To my surprise, support poured in from unexpected places. The robotics team organized a fundraiser. 3 local women who owned engineering firms reached out to offer summer internships. The community college announced they would cover my first-year tuition through their Women in STEM scholarship program. The wave of support strengthened my resolve to fight, even as it humbled me deeply. I wasn't alone anymore. The following Monday, my mother showed up at Rachel's house, begging me to reconsider. "Kevin is furious about the legal papers he was served," she said, wringing her hands. "He says this will destroy our family." I invited her in, and we sat at the Petersons' kitchen table. Rachel's parents had tactfully made themselves scarce. "Mom, Kevin destroyed our family when he stole my college fund and then kicked me out for standing up for myself. He says the money is all tied up in the business now. He can't just give it back immediately. Then he can create a payment plan," I said firmly. "But I'm not dropping this. That money was mine, left by my father for my education." She looked down at her hands. "I should never have made Kevin the custodian of the account. I thought he would protect you." It was the closest she'd come to admitting her mistake. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I know you did what you thought was best, but now I need to do what's best for my future." "I miss you," she whispered. "The house feels empty without you." "I miss you too," I admitted. "But I can't come back unless Kevin acknowledges what he did was wrong and takes concrete steps to make it right." She nodded slowly, then hesitated before adding, He's been different since you left. Angrier. Sometimes I wonder if I really know him at all." The statement hung between us, loaded with implications neither of us was ready to address. As she left, She hugged me tighter than usual, whispering, "Your father would be so proud of you for standing up for yourself." Those words stayed with me as the legal process moved forward. Beth had filed for an emergency hearing, and the judge had agreed to see us the following week. Meanwhile, community support continued to grow. The local newspaper ran a story about my situation, without using names, since the case involved a minors' trust fund. This led to even more support, including a scholarship offer from a women's engineering society and a part-time job offer from a tech startup in the area. Mrs. Carter organized weekly study sessions to help me stay focused on my AP exams despite the turmoil. During one of these sessions, she shared something personal. "I had a father like your stepfather," she told me as we were packing up our books. "He believed women belonged in the kitchen, not the classroom. When I got accepted to college, he refused to contribute a penny." "What did you do?" I asked. "I worked 3 jobs and took 7 years to finish my degree," she said. "It was brutally hard. And I promised myself I would never stand by and watch another young woman's dreams be crushed by that kind of backward thinking." Her story made me realize that my fight was bigger than just my college fund. It was about challenging the idea that women's education was less important, less worthy of investment. This realization was reinforced when I started receiving messages from other girls at school who were facing similar, if less dramatic, situations. Jasmine's parents insisted she only apply to colleges within commuting distance because girls shouldn't live away from home before marriage. Taylor's father refused to pay for her computer science degree because that's a man's field. I began meeting with these girls regularly, sharing the resources Beth had provided me about educational rights and financial independence. Without planning to, I had become an advocate. A week before the court hearing, Beth called with surprising news. The local community college had expanded their offer. They would now cover 2 full years of tuition, after which I could transfer to a 4-year engineering program. "This doesn't replace what was taken from you," Beth emphasized, "but it provides a safety net while we pursue your case." I was overwhelmed by the generosity. When I called to thank the college's scholarship committee, the director, Dr. Maria Gonzalez, told me something that gave me chills. "Your teacher, Mrs. Carter, was my high school English teacher 20 years ago," she said. "She helped me fight a similar battle with my own father who didn't believe in educating daughters. This is me paying it forward." The interconnectedness of women helping women across generations moved me deeply. I was part of something larger than myself, a quiet revolution against outdated beliefs. The night before the court hearing, I barely slept. Beth had prepped me thoroughly on what to expect, but the thought of facing Kevin in a formal legal setting made my stomach churn. What if the judge didn't believe me? What if Kevin somehow charmed his way out of it, as he had charmed my mother years ago? Rachel sat with me on her bedroom floor as I voiced these fears. "Look at all the people who believe in you," she said, pointing to the stack of support letters, scholarship offers, and news clippings we'd collected. "All these people can't be wrong. And the documents don't lie, Haley. The money was yours. He took it. It's that simple." I nodded, trying to absorb her confidence. "I just wish." "Wish what?" "I wish I didn't have to fight my own family for what's already mine." Rachel hugged me. "You're not fighting your family. You're fighting one man's unfair decision. And you're not fighting alone." Her words carried me through that sleepless night and into the morning of what would become one of the most important days of my life. The county courthouse was imposing, all marble and echoing hallways. Beth met me outside, looking professional and confident in a navy suit. Mrs. Carter came too, along with Rachel and her parents who had become my surrogate family. "Remember, speak clearly and stick to the facts," Beth advised as we waited on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom. "The documentation is very strong. Judge Winters is fair and has a good record on cases involving educational trusts." My mother and Kevin arrived moments before the hearing was scheduled to begin. Mom gave me a small, uncertain smile. Kevin wouldn't even look at me. Jason had come too, hanging back with an expression that mixed curiosity and discomfort. When we entered the courtroom, the formality of the setting hit me. The judge's bench seemed to tower over everything, and the court reporter's steady typing created a rhythm like a ticking clock. Judge Winters, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and piercing eyes, called the court to order. Beth presented our case first, methodically laying out the evidence. The original insurance policy specifying the educational purpose of the funds, the custodial account documentation, and the transfer form showing Kevin had moved the money directly into his business account. Your Honor, this is a clear case of breach of fiduciary duty, Beth concluded. Mr. Wallace had no legal right to use funds specifically designated for Ms. Mitchell's education to capitalize his construction business. We are asking for immediate repayment of the full amount of $63.247 plus legal fees and interest. Kevin's attorney, a slick-looking man named Randall Tucker, tried to paint a different picture. Your Honor, my client has been a devoted stepfather to Haley Mitchell for 10 years. The business expansion he undertook was intended to benefit the entire family, including providing future employment opportunities for Ms. Mitchell if she so desired. Judge Winters interrupted him. Mr. Tucker, I'm not concerned with Mr. Wallace's intentions. I'm concerned with the legal status of the funds in question. Are you disputing that this was a custodial account established specifically for educational purposes? Tucker hesitated. No, Your Honor, but... And are you disputing that your client transferred these funds to his business without consulting the beneficiary, who was 18 at the time and legally entitled to control of the account? The timing of the transfer was unfortunate, Tucker admitted. It occurred 3 weeks before Ms. Mitchell's 18th birthday. This was news to me. I looked at Beth, who made a quick note. Judge Winters raised an eyebrow. That makes the situation more problematic for your client, not less. Mr. Wallace, please approach the bench. Kevin walked forward, finally meeting my eyes. The contempt I saw there made me shiver. Mr. Wallace, did you understand the terms of the custodial account when you became custodian? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. But... And did you understand that the funds were specifically designated for Haley Mitchell's education? Yes, but as the father figure in her life, I believed I had the right to make decisions about how best to secure her future. The law disagrees with you, Mr. Wallace, Judge Winters said flatly. Custodial accounts are not parental property. They belong to the minor, to be used solely for their benefit, with education being the specified purpose in this case. She turned to some documents on her bench. I also note from the financial records submitted that after transferring Ms. Mitchell's educational funds to your business, you purchased a new truck registered to the business and a boat registered in your personal name. Both purchases occurred within weeks of the fund transfer. Kevin's face reddened. This was information even Beth hadn't uncovered. The judge had clearly done her homework. Your Honor, those purchases were planned business investments, Kevin began. A personal boat is not a business investment, Mr. Wallace, Judge Winters cut him off. And even if it were, that does not change the fact that you misappropriated funds that were not yours to use. She shuffled her papers and looked at both parties. I've heard enough. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Haley Mitchell. Mr. Wallace is hereby ordered to repay the full amount of $63.247 plus 5% interest calculated from the date of withdrawal, plus reasonable legal fees. My heart soared, but Judge Winters wasn't finished. Given that Mr. Wallace claims the funds are tied up in his business, I am ordering a payment plan as follows: an initial payment of $10,000 within 30 days, followed by monthly payments of $2,000 until the full amount plus interest is repaid. I am also placing a lien against Wallace Construction, LLC to ensure compliance. She looked directly at Kevin. Mr. Wallace, be advised that failure to adhere to this payment schedule will result in contempt charges. This court takes a very dim view of adults who misappropriate funds meant for a child's education. With a sharp rap of her gavel, it was over. We had won. In the hallway outside, my supporters hugged me one by one. Mrs. Carter had tears in her eyes. Justice prevailed, she whispered. My mother approached hesitantly. Haley, She trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. "I didn't know about the boat," she finally said. "Or that he transferred the money before your birthday." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The victory felt hollow in some ways. I had won against my own family, and the full repayment would take nearly 2 years. As if reading my thoughts, Beth put a hand on my shoulder. "This is a good outcome, Haley." The judge's ruling was strong and clear. "And the payment plan means you'll have some funds immediately to help with your first year." Kevin and his attorney left without speaking to anyone, Kevin's back rigid with anger. Jason lingered, and to my surprise, approached me. "That was pretty badass," he said awkwardly. Standing up to him like that. No one ever does. Coming from Jason, this was unexpected validation. "Thanks," I replied, not sure what else to say. "He's been impossible to live with since you left," Jason added. "Mom cries a lot." He shifted uncomfortably. "Anyway, good luck with college and stuff." As he walked away to join Kevin at the elevator, I had the strange sense that something fundamental had shifted, not just in my life, but perhaps in Jason's perspective too. Outside the courthouse, standing in the spring sunshine, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: vindication, relief, lingering anger, and sadness for what my family could have been. But most of all, I felt gratitude for the community that had rallied around me: teachers, friends, and even strangers who believed that a girl's dreams of education were worth fighting for. The weeks following the court victory were a whirlwind of activity. True to the judge's order, Kevin made the initial $10,000 payment, though according to my mother, he complained bitterly about having to liquidate business assets to do so. I used part of this money to secure a small apartment with Rachel, who would be attending the same community college in the fall. Moving out permanently was both liberating and painful. My mother helped me pack my remaining belongings while Kevin was at work, both of us dancing around the elephant in the room, the future of their marriage. "Are you going to be okay?" I asked as we loaded the last box into Rachel's mom's minivan. My mother's smile was tired but genuine. "I should be asking you that question." "I'm serious, Mom. The way he's been treating you." She sighed, folding an empty garbage bag with methodical precision. "Kevin and I have a lot to work through. His actions have forced me to see things I've been ignoring for years." She looked up at me, her eyes clearer and more determined than I'd seen in a long time. "But watching you stand up for yourself, it reminded me of who I used to be before I met him. I'm not making any decisions yet, but I'm thinking about things differently now." It wasn't the clean break part of me had hoped for, but it was a start. I hugged her tightly before we drove away, hoping she would find her own strength again, as I had found mine. With the first payment and the community college scholarship, I was able to register for fall classes in the pre-engineering program. The plan was to complete my general requirements and introductory engineering courses at the community college, then transfer to Georgia Tech or another 4-year program once more of the money was repaid. In late May, Mrs. Carter organized a special dinner at her home, inviting all the teachers who had contributed to the emergency scholarship fund they had created for me. Mr. Patel, my calculus teacher; Ms. Rodriguez, my physics teacher; Mr. Washington, my robotics club advisor, and several others. Beth came too, now more friend than attorney. The evening was filled with laughter, advice about college, and heartfelt toasts to my future. As we were having dessert, Mrs. Carter clinked her glass for attention. "I want to share something with all of you," she said. 30 years ago, I was in a situation very similar to Haley's. My father believed daughters should go from their father's house to their husband's house, with no need for higher education in between. She paused, looking around the table. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Eleanor Jenkins, changed my life by helping me apply for scholarships, find housing, and navigate financial aid. Tonight, I received a phone call from Georgia Tech. She turned to me with a smile. "They've agreed to hold your acceptance for up to 2 years, and they're offering you a spot in their Women in Engineering mentorship program when you transfer." The news left me speechless. Georgia Tech had been my dream school since freshman year, and knowing they were still committed to having me as a student, despite the delay, was overwhelming. How did you manage that? Beth asked, impressed. Mrs. Carter's eyes twinkled. It turns out Mrs. Jenkins' daughter is now the dean of engineering at Georgia Tech. Sometimes the universe works in beautiful circles. That night, as Rachel and I were setting up our new apartment, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past few months. I had lost so much: my home, my relationship with my stepfather, the straightforward path to college I had planned. But I had gained things too: independence, resilience, and a supportive community that extended far beyond what I had imagined. As summer progressed, I began mentoring 3 younger girls from my high school who were facing family resistance to their college plans. Using what I had learned from my own experience, I helped them research scholarships, understand their legal rights to financial aid information, and build strategies for self-advocacy. "You're building quite the reputation as an educational rights warrior," Rachel commented one evening as I finished a call with Zoe, a junior whose parents wanted her to attend a religious college despite her dreams of studying marine biology. "I'm just passing on what I learned," I said. "It's not right that any girl should have her dreams limited because someone else doesn't value her education." The first day of community college arrived with both excitement and a tinge of what might have been. As I walked into my first engineering class, I was startled to see that out of 25 students, only 3 of us were women. The professor, Dr. Mendez, didn't miss a beat. "Engineering has traditionally been male-dominated," she said, addressing the obvious disparity, "but some of the most innovative engineers I know are women. The field needs diverse perspectives to solve the complex problems of the future." After class, she asked me to stay behind for a moment. "Mrs. Carter at the high school told me about your situation," she said. "I want you to know that the path to becoming an engineer isn't always straight. I took 10 years to finish my degrees because of family obligations. What matters is persistence." Her words stayed with me as I navigated my first semester. The coursework was challenging but exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I was studying exactly what I wanted, without having to justify my interests or downplay my ambitions. The monthly payments from Kevin arrived on schedule. I suspected more due to fear of the judge's consequences than any moral awakening. My mother and I had dinner every Sunday, carefully avoiding discussing him too much. She seemed different, stronger, more self-assured. She had started taking classes at the community college too, working toward an accounting degree she had abandoned when she married Kevin. In November, I received an unexpected email from Jason. He had started at State University and was struggling with his classes. "I never really learned how to study," he wrote. "You always made it look so easy. Any tips?" I sent him a detailed guide to study strategies I had developed over the years. To my surprise, he responded with genuine gratitude and regular updates on his progress. The dynamic between us had shifted. The favoritism that had once protected him now left him unprepared for college challenges, while my years of self-advocacy had built resilience I hadn't fully appreciated. As the fall semester ended, Mrs. Carter invited me to speak to her senior English classes about my experience. Standing before rooms of students who had been my peers just months earlier was intimidating, but I shared my story openly: the betrayal, the legal battle, and the community that had saved my dreams. "The most important thing I learned," I told them, "is that your education belongs to you. No one has the right to take it away or tell you it's not important because of your gender, your background, or their own limited beliefs." After one session, a quiet girl named Amber approached me. "My dad says the same thing about girls not needing college," she whispered. "I want to be a doctor, but he won't even let me apply." I gave her my contact information and Beth's card. "You're not alone," I told her. "And your dreams matter." That evening, sitting in the small apartment I shared with Rachel, surrounded by engineering textbooks and problem sets, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me since the night Kevin announced he had taken my college fund. The path ahead was longer and more complex than I had originally planned, but it was still my path. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Carter. "Just heard from Amber's counselor. She's applying to pre-med programs with the school's help. You're starting a chain reaction, Haley." I smiled, thinking about all the women who had formed links in my own chain: Mrs. Carter, Beth, Judge Winters, Dr. Mendez, and countless others I hadn't even met, stretching back to Mrs. Jenkins, who had helped Mrs. Carter 30 years earlier. In that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would become the best engineer I could be, and I would never stop being a link in that chain for other girls whose dreams deserved a chance to live. The money that my biological father had set aside for me would eventually be fully restored. But the more valuable inheritance he had left me was the lesson I had finally learned, that my mind, my education, and my future were worth fighting for, no matter who tried to stand in my way. What happened in your life when someone tried to limit your dreams because of who you are? Did you have a Mrs. Carter who stood up for you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that their dreams matter too. Remember, the strongest chains are made when we lift each other up. Thank you for being part of my journey.